Good evening. Welcome to the Who's Left podcast, a show about Indiana politics, history, and culture from an unapologetically leftist perspective. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers, and I'm broadcasting from Bloomington. Tonight, back up to my old stomping grounds, where my guest is Alicia Firanek, a Democratic candidate for Indiana House District 20, that is LaPorte and Starke counties in northwest Indiana, where she was born and raised. She's a mom, a former cosmetologist, and someone with 2 decades of customer service experience. She says she wants to bring real, lived experience perspective to the statehouse on healthcare, housing, and making the economy work for working Hoosiers. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, but before we get there, you know the routine. This is an independent media project. We don't paywall content, we don't have advertisers, and we certainly don't have billionaire benefactors. Only individuals like you keep this thing going. It is a foundational principle of Who's Left and the Progressive Indiana Network that we refuse to hide information behind paywalls in the middle of a political crisis, even if that's not in our financial best interest. So please, if you find value in this work, go to progressiveindiana.net and subscribe at the paid level. It's only $5 a month or $50 a year to help us build the infrastructure that will pop the right-wing media bubble in this state. And if a paid subscription isn't in the cards for you right now, that's okay. I get it. Gas is really expensive. You can still help out by liking and sharing on social media, commenting, leaving reviews, providing feedback, and forwarding our content to your people. You get us when you can. Mostly, we just want you here in this community of Hoosiers dedicated to making this state and its government work for all of us, not just the elite few. Please join us. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at whosleft.us, and on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Who's Left. That's HOOS Left. Progressive Indiana Network's handle is the full spelled out name on most sites, but on Blue Sky and TikTok, where you don't get that many characters, it's PIN Indiana. Please help us grow with a follow wherever you're at. Tell the others. Let's build a radically democratic Indiana together. Now, put your hands together for our guest, House District 20 candidate, Alicia Firanek. Alicia, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I've been anxiously waiting for this day.
I'm so glad we get a chance to do this. It's always good to get a chance to check in back home, as it were. The folks may know I'm originally from Michigan City. I've been in Bloomington for... I don't want to give away my age, but it's been a while now. So, but I always am interested to hear what's going on up there. So, first of all, I always like to begin these interviews with a segment I call the Easy Dubs, the Easy W's of journalism, the who, what, when, where. And of course, it is election year. Primary season is upon us. Of course, today, April 7th, is the first day of early voting. So the polls, well, are not open now. It is evening, but they will be open tomorrow where you're at. And throughout the week, check with your local county officials to find out when they are open. But primary day is May 5th. That's the when. The what is you are running for office. But tell us about the who. Who is Alicia Firanek?
Oh, I'm just a normal everyday citizen like you and the rest of my district. I've worked since I was 15 on a W-2. Before that, I babysat, and I found myself in a position recently, or ever since I moved back to Indiana. I moved away to Georgia, had my daughter down there, and then when I came back up here, it's like everything started going downhill. One experience can take away 2 decades of work. So, I think that more real people are feeling that now than ever before, to be quite truthful. They are squeezing us in every way they can, just our everyday working folks, and it's getting tough out here. So I'm doing what I can.
And we appreciate that for sure. And I'm sure the people up there in House District 20 do as well. Can you tell us a little bit about House District 20? Like I said, we mentioned that this is up in northwest Indiana in LaPorte and Starke County a little bit. But give us a little bit of color. Tell us about District 20 in
Sure. So, we've got the two blue areas of the state, you down in Marion County and then up here in the region. And so I'm kind of in that cusp of where it goes from urban and suburban and into agricultural and rural. And so I got a nice mix in between the two. I'm right in that line right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got a little bit of everything up here.
Yeah, it's really true. You do. You're not far from Chicago. That's great. You can hop on the train if you drive into Michigan City there. That's always good. South Bend is not far. Really nice kind of sweet spot there. So let's dig a little bit more into your story. Now, I understand you've described yourself as someone who has seen and survived obstacles. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So when I came back to Indiana, I wasn't ready to move into the Michigan City area where I was born and raised at. There was a lot of shootings going on, and so I had to think about my daughter, and so I ventured over to LaPorte, about 20 minutes away. My sister lived there, my niece lived there. I didn't know too much about the area at the time, so I just kind of went with where my niece was, and I started renting an apartment that was subsidized by the government. And from there, our lives kind of took a turn, because how we treat the least of we have done to me. And so it really opened my eyes that we treat poor people so poorly, right? Because on paper, I'm poor. When I became a single mom, I became just another statistic. And it's really a struggle. It's really a struggle to be on that receiving end, have your eyes open to why do we villainize or demonize poor people? Because to me, I was on top of the world. I was raising a kid alone, but I handled myself, handled my bills. I've got I was not struggling in any way, shape, or form, but bad housing made us sick. And then, so everything that I worked for, everything that I had accomplished up to that point was now up in the air. If you are sick and you can't work, how can you pay your bills? And so it was being treated like, oh, well, they're poor people. We don't have to provide great housing. We just can throw up paper housing, call it a day. We've done our duty to, help these statistics and poor people out. And really it ruins lives. So, one bad experience, I went looking for the root cause, and I found the corruption, and it goes all the way to the top. So I'm determined to change that, and to change the way that we look at the people that rely on social services.
You very nicely took us where we wanted to go, because after we do the easy dubs of journalism, I like to get into the why, which I think is a far more interesting question. And it definitely sounds like you maybe ran into some obstacles, certainly with housing in particular. We don't take care of folks nearly as well as we could with robust public housing. For example, in Europe, man, I don't know if you know, like Austria, their public housing system is second to none. We in America have the resources for these sort of things, but we choose to spend them on, unnecessary wars in the Middle East instead. But you also mentioned you ran into some corruption. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so pretty much everything's a tax scam in Indiana, right? Or in this nation, right? Because that's how certain people get rich off of it, and the rest of us stay in poverty or you stay in survival mode. So I was doing my research, doing my digging. They had left a letter stating, that there was 3 years of grandfathered in protections, but they were trying to be released from their original obligations when it came to the subsidy or the loan that they had gotten from the government to provide this housing for us. There's always a loophole. Indiana is one of only 18 states that allows this loophole still. The rest of the states, they saw people applying for this developer loan or to come in and do this. And they saw where people were committing fraud. They'd throw it up and then they'd completely abandon it. So you're not maintaining a property. You're not doing everything that the government's giving you money to do. And then you get to also turn around and ask to be let off scot-free for the entire obligation that you signed up for originally. And, I found it pretty egregious to try to call out for my mayor, code enforcement, the state authorities, the IHCDA, everywhere. I'm like, hey, these guys are non-compliant. We're getting sicker and sicker. And sure, I might be moving out and leaving, but these harms are still going to be affecting everybody else that remain here. And nobody's helped me. So I'm coming to help myself is what I'm doing. But I'm helping and advocating for the rest of us to not have to go through that either,
Yeah. Well, and somebody has to draw the line, and I think that's what they count on is just making things intolerable, making it difficult. Like, oh, I don't want to speak up. It's just going to be too much of a burden, and folks just walk away, and then the next person who is struggling winds up moving in and getting sick themselves or whatever it is. And you sort of touched on it. You mentioned the struggle and the corruption, and it turns out that these things are related because the people who are often writing the laws are writing in these loopholes. The folks who own a lot of property and whatnot are often political donors. They give to the people who are writing these laws. And those folks, they don't know the struggle. So they're writing all these laws. They're putting in hurdles in front of people who and then they don't really know what it's like to have to navigate them themselves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Instead of, almost half of the state is renters and rent burdened, right? We're sitting at like 47% in the state and in my county that are rent burdened. And what is our state doing for us to be able to acquire property or to fast track or help us own a home? Back when my parents were buying homes, there was all kinds of incentives for first-time home buyers, and they did it. There's 4 kids all on one income, and here I look around and I see people with 2 income households struggling as well. They have not maintained a system that helps the people. So we have to get back to that.
Yeah, and a big part of that is, all of your income is going to rent, and you don't get to buy into the American dream if the American dream is even still alive, right?
Right. Absolutely. And go ahead.
No. You were going somewhere with that.
Well, because, I see so many people that, their first experience with home ownership, it's going to be when they inherit it. And that's a problem. We we're backsliding, right? They're telling everybody to start a family right outside of high school. We don't even need college anymore. This is the thing to do, this, that, and the other. But it wasn't 10 years ago that we were encouraging our kids to spread their wings and fly, to go travel, to go experience life before settling down. I chose that path, like I said, I moved away, I moved to Georgia and was able to rent, and the market has been horrible ever since. So at what point were any of us supposed to come back to and settle when everything's in shambles right now?
Yeah. So I guess I want to sort of move into our next segment here. And one thing I like to do with candidates is to have them talk about their three things. Now, I'm sure you have a well thought out policy platform on a variety of positions, but most of us don't have that kind of bandwidth, and we can really only focus on three things that are really going to stick with us at the end of this conversation. And I was sort of looking through your Ballotpedia survey, and great site, by the way, invaluable resource. Everybody should look into that for any candidate for any office. And if they are not doing these surveys, you should ask some questions, like what are they hiding? But and the sort of three things that you wanted to focus on were healthcare, housing, and wages. And turns out all of these are related, but especially the housing. We were just talking about this. And the problems that are out there. Let's talk about solutions. So what kind of policy are you going to champion in Indianapolis when you win this thing in November on the housing front?
Well, for one, I would love to close that qualified allocation process, that loophole. That way, all the affordable housing that we will be investing in, because it should be a good program, right? It should allow those folks who have lower wages the opportunity to have a stable environment, to start putting their savings away because they have that subsidy, and rent's not taking up 50 to 70% of their paycheck. That is a good idea in whole, but without closing that loophole, we're just going to continue to have this pattern of an abuse of power, an abuse of wealthy coming in, creating more corporate landlords, and it's going to root out the fraud and the abuse of power in that area, so that way the people who need those subsidies can actually save without getting sick. Also for housing, I would love to see and implement in the financial institution area, what is keeping us from obtaining these loans? When, for me, I've been renting since I was 17. So if I've been renting for 17 years now, shouldn't that be enough qualification to automatically get us into a first-time homeowners loan? Anything but what we're doing right now is going to be an improvement.
And one thing you mentioned specifically was institutional investors. You called out private equity by name, if I understand. Is that a big problem up there in LaPorte County currently?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't have the absolute exact statistics, but, the rental market, at the same time that the grandfathered in period, it's a game they play. So the assessor's office, over assessing people's properties, helps out those landlords, and also raises the homeowner's taxes. And it's who are they doing this for? Because it's not for the everyday people. Without any substantial improvements, why did the rise in property values jump so dramatically all at once. And I believe it's because private equity, they may have started at just a few, but then they turn around, they find that loophole, they sell it to themselves or a different portfolio of themselves. They overpay themselves to raise everybody's property values, and not enough people are mad about it, I don't think. So there's be a lot of things that can be tightened up and honed in on when it comes to providing real relief for everybody. I mean, our seniors, it's not just the vulnerable and the underserved or the underprivileged. It's also our elderly who've worked their entire lives, who planned for their retirement in a certain way, and they didn't see their property taxes going up $1,000 at a time. So we've got a lot of issues and a lot of things to tackle.
And listen, I'm a good liberal person who believes if done well, government is a good thing that can help people, and it relies on taxes to run. So I'm not like one of these anti-tax weirdos that you find out there, but the property tax thing in particular is sort of a double-edged sword. Like, homeowners want to see the value of their home go up. That is where a lot of wealth is built, is in the value of our homes. That's like the only way a lot of regular people can accrue wealth in this country. And so you want to have a high value on your home, but along with that comes the high tax bill, like you said, that hits homeowners who've been in their residences for a long time. Whereas your institutional investors, your landlords, they can just pass their tax bill onto their renters, right? And so the people living in the homes inevitably always wind up paying the price.
Oh yeah, definitely. There are so many issues that just come full circle as well, because everybody's living in fear. And when you don't know if one medical emergency is going to put you so far into debt that they come and seize your home and create even more issues for you, we've got to go back to fundamentally being there for our own people. We were this close this past legislative session to making it to where they can't come seize your property because of medical debt, and it got killed in the House. So we got our Senate to agree to it, got killed in the House, and people need that kind of guarantee and that kind of protection to feel stable in their life.
And also, there's just not enough housing, as I understand, and part of that is, again, it's a NIMBY thing. People who are already established in their homes, they don't want more housing stock because that means lower housing prices and the value of their property can, in theory, go down. But also, you want to make sure that the right housing is getting built. I believe this past session, it was House Bill 1001. Now House Enrolled Act 1001 was meant to increase the housing stock in this state. And there were some good things in that bill, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of folks in local governments are complaining that it sort of went around them and reduced standards in many places in terms of zoning and in terms of just, the quality of homes that can be built. And of course the home builders they just want to slap these things up as fast as they can, get in, get out, make their buck, and move on, right?
Yeah, well, not just for homes, that also enabled or allowed more of these like condo and apartment style, anything that is going to be an affordable or a tax credit, that's the incentive as well. And unless we really make sure that we're providing oversight, that those things are built properly, that they are maintained properly, and that they are not utilizing that loophole to just become rich corporate landlords later on. The housing, single family homes, it's, you hear them say that it's unaffordable to build. And I do want to hear more from the actual builders about why they think it is. A lot of them will go back to, well, oh, it was the COVID era and this, that, and the other. Or is it the developers that come in and they get the tax incentives and the subsidies and this, that, and the other, and they just are like, well, it's going to cost more because we're now charging, $175 in labor or whatever per hour. Is everything being done responsibly? Because there's a lot of irresponsible things going on with our tax dollars. Oversight is huge to me, because if the proper agencies were doing the oversight like they were supposed to, it could have prevented a lot of the misfortune that I went through.
The federal government certainly isn't helping when the president is slapping tariffs willy-nilly on our trade partners, many of which supply the raw materials needed to build housing.
Yeah, nope, it's not helping at all. So how do we get back to before that? I mean, it is not going to be just local. It's not going to be just state. It's federal. I mean, we really have to put our best people forward that have the integrity to do it right, and to not turn everything into a get rich quick scheme and a game. And that's what we're seeing too much of right now, I believe. So
yeah, 100%. So I guess I want to move on and transition to another one of your pillars, which is healthcare. And in a way, it sounds like that intersects with housing on multiple levels. I mean, certainly healthcare expenses being as ridiculously high as they are, that's just another line item in the budget that, you got your housing, you got your healthcare, that eats up pretty much everything. But it sounds like you actually ran into a problem where your housing was making you sick.
Yeah, there are so many factors of life that become determinants of health, right? I learned that going through this, that if you're in poverty and you're always stressed out, that's a determinant of health. Stress causes heart disease and amplifies autoimmune issues, and stress kills. Housing, if it's making you sick, that is a determinant of health as well. If you are, lesser income and you're food insecure, or, there have been times since my daughter was born where I feed her first and then I might go to bed hungry, or I ate with my neighbors, down in Georgia, after her dad walked out. I made friends with some of the families at the daycare, and I would go in and have dinner with them 4 nights a week. And that saved me some groceries, but, determinants of health are all wrapped up into policy. Poverty is a policy choice, right? We have the funds and the resources and the richest nation on planet Earth to eradicate poverty, and we're not doing enough.
Obviously, I sort of mentioned the tariffs in the last section, talking about ways the federal government is not helping. And obviously, when it comes to healthcare, you would love to see something like universal single payer Medicare for all. Well, okay. I mean, that's great. We want that. We do. That's not something we can really pull off at the state level. So when you get down to Indianapolis, what do you intend to do on the healthcare front?
So I'm not sure that we can't pull it off. If enough of us rise up and enough of us want this and enough of us vote in the people who want to make it happen as well. I've attended a lot of town halls, and I got up there on the mic and I asked Senator Rodney Pohl, now that we won redistricting, and we showed that the people can come together and fight for what they want, why can't, or do you see us being able to come together as as a state and be one of the first to show the rest of the country that we can provide a single payer system or a universal system here in Indiana, and let them follow suit. And he agreed that healthcare might inevitably be one of those things that brings all the people together here in Indiana. And I would love to see it. I am here for it. I don't want to say that it's not possible, because if we don't have hope, what do we have?
Yeah, it's certainly a big lift, not only because you have a smaller risk pool at the state level than you do certainly at the national level. If you could, the more people you can bring into the system, the more widely you can distribute the costs. So, that's great. But also we have some healthcare companies that are located here in Indiana that maybe wouldn't like to see that. I know Anthem or Elevance or whatever they're calling themselves these days, that was a Indiana founded company, one of your biggest insurers. I don't think they want to see themselves get cut out of the equation.
Well, maybe they don't have to take themselves out of the equation. Maybe they can just start playing in a more fair kind of way, right? Because it does seem that the healthcare industry is being run by monopolies, and we have people even on a federal level that are calling it out. How do you get to own the pharmacy, own the hospital, own the clinics, and then you set your own prices? It's something's got to give. And in a way of preventative care will always save you more money in the long run. And with them using Medicaid and Medicare, the percentage we're spending on that is increasing and increasing. Well, if we would have gave people preventative care, and before, their tooth fell out of their jaw, we just let them get their cavity taken care of, we would have saved $6,000, because we would have spent the 100 in the first place. And it's if we don't start electing people who understand that and that logic and putting that forward, then what is the path forward? We don't want to be a two-tiered system, and unfortunately, that's the direction that it looks like they're hoping to achieve.
We have this really messed up backward incentive structure where it's more profitable to treat people when they're sick than it is to treat them up front, right?
Yeah, I can't argue that.
So we talked about a couple of the big ticket items in the family budget: the housing, the health insurance. Right now, I think we would talk about affordability. Obviously, we would all like to see prices come down, or wages go up. So the third pillar on your platform is wages and workers. And, so you talk about raising wages. Obviously, our minimum wage in this state is still a minuscule, pathetic $7.25 and has been since 2009. So that's one thing we could do. But let's talk about what else we can do to raise wages in this state.
We can start fining corporations that if your employee comes to us and needs food stamps or needs Medicaid, if you're not providing those things or offering them, a group pricing for healthcare, then we're going to take away that big old tax break that we're giving y'all or whatnot. We have got to repeal the right to work laws, and if everything in between. Our general fund corporations only contribute 3.1% too. I mean, that's a major problem when everything is corporate and corporations. And so why do we have to carry the brunt of all the taxes and all of the uplifting of the community and whatnot when they're sitting on mega wealth, hoarding it, not giving back to their employees, not giving back to the community? We've got to make some major rumble and major shift there.
It sounds like the people are bearing all of the risk and all of the benefits are accruing toward the top. Another thing that we can do is maybe support organized labor in our state. We are a quote unquote, they call it right to work. It's more like right to work for less.
Oh yeah.
Right now, up in your area, NIPSCO, that's the monopoly utility up there, just locked out their workers.
Yep, about 1,600 through the NIPSCO union, and then another 800 to 1,000 for the BP oil refinery in Whiting as well. I mean, that is, I believe, one of the last steps in their grand plan of making it a two-tiered system, right? They wanted to implement this imperialistic way of life that literally most of our ancestors immigrated here to get away from. So we cannot allow them to be union busting like this. And that's why I'm fully for repealing the right to work and establishing a higher minimum wage and coming down on these corporations.
It seems like, want to take us back to the Gilded Age, before there were such things as labor protections, before there was such a thing as there was organized labor, but before organized labor had much power, which they really got in the 1930s.
Yeah, we need more organized labor. I believe that, is it Mamdani that I don't know if the fast food workers union already existed before he got into office, or if that's something he helped create and then he got them some of the wages that they were denied previously because of wage theft. And so, like I said, I would fully support organized labor in every industry. Fast food workers, we could use a tenants union up here, everywhere, anywhere you have someone advocating and fighting for, safety measures, work-life balance, and wages that take care of all of your bills and leave you with some money left over for leisure. I mean, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with organizing and creating that opportunity for all of us.
So there is one thing I want to talk about, and it's not necessarily specific to your area. This is happening all over the state right now, but in many ways, that area of the state is sort of ground zero up there in LaPorte County, and then western St. Joe County, and the New Prairie area. You got these big data centers going in, right? And no one wants them in their area. They're a drain on resources. They drive up electric rates. They consume a ton of power. They consume a ton of water. But there's sort of this tension because organized labor really wants these jobs. Long-term data centers don't really employ too many people, but up front in building these massive projects, those are good union jobs in many ways. So, how do you thread that needle?
Well, it's difficult because you do have a state that has the right to work laws, and they ignored every opportunity they had this past legislative session to regulate the production or the creation of data centers, the implementation. They deregulated our environmental protections in order to basically fast track this. And I'm sure that has to do with like a Wall Street game they're playing, be that first one to get this AI bubble up and running, be the first one to invest. But it's irresponsible. So, and our state specifically have been schmoozed by not just normal data centers for, running Facebook or this, that, and the other. No, they're hardcore on the AI data centers here in Indiana, and those use even more power and even more water, and we've left them unchecked at a federal level and a state level as far as regulations go. And it's a big concern. It is a big concern. Here in LaPorte County, actually, next week, they are going to have an annexation meeting to potentially annex like 1,500 more acres of agricultural land. I mean, we're sitting at a time when we don't know if we're going into a World War III and what's to come, and we're going to just recklessly give up, rezone, sell off land that could be used to feed us. And what will we have left when we give up all of that? It's looking pretty bleak. So I will be there speaking out against it. And, it's very unsettling. Even when I filed to run, I had no idea that it was going to be a roller coaster of things going on nationally, things going on in my state, and things going on just personally in my life. So, but I'm trekking through it all because the cause is worth it. We can't just let money keep driving everything. We can't let this corruption win. We've got to take our people power back and start working with each other and for each other. So
I guess just sort of close this thread on the data centers. It's like, it sounds like you're not necessarily anti data center out of hand, but they could be built on brownfields or reclaimed abandoned industrial properties, and with higher standards. They could be built with sustainable green energy. They could have closed loop cooling systems so they're not using a lot of water. Like there's a place for these, but we need higher standards where they're built and how they're built. And that would still satisfy organized labor's desire to work on these big projects.
Yeah, as long as our local communities that are approving it make sure there's that labor agreement prior to signing any kind of contract or approving any kind of variance or anything, because we saw it over there in Michigan City where fastly approved everything. Half of it was behind closed doors and labor got cut out. So and then there's been like catastrophic instances after that. During this construction phase of it, a worker fell through the roof.
No.
And yeah, and contaminated soil being hauled off. That is the reason that I think that they really went hard on deregulating the environmental protections as well, to get as many of these in here as fast as they can before all of us can mobilize, unite, and fight for responsible integration of this kind of technology.
And you mentioned this is Michigan City. That's Mayor Angie Nelson Deutsch. Democrat down here, well, a little bit north of where I am, but up in Indianapolis, you're seeing the same thing with Mayor Joe Hogsett. There's a big controversy over the AI data centers there. They want to put in right smack in the middle of a historically black neighborhood. And, these are Democrats that are supposed to be standing up for regular people who are rolling over for industry. So that is a concern. It is not this is one of those issues where you can just say Republicans bad, Democrats good. It is complicated. And, you see that too many folks in our party are maybe too cozy with industry. So I guess, I want to sort of ask, you happen to be in a contested race up there for House District 20. Not all Democrats are made alike. What kind of Democrat are you? Why are you the right person to win this race and take on the incumbent Jim Pressel in November? Should he make it out of his primary? I believe he has an opponent too, doesn't he?
He does. Well, so you talked about, the Democrats who are allowing the data centers to come up in their neighborhoods. And I just want to point back to just a little bit with what they did to our municipalities, right? They said, all right, we're cutting your guys' budgets. You're going to have to do more with less and figure out your own ways to bring in revenue. And it was the perfect little game they played there, that, make everybody so desperate for revenue that they accept the first thing that comes to them. And so I think that's right there. But then can you repeat? What did you want me to answer?
Are you a good witch or a bad witch? No.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm so sorry. I had a phone call coming in. I can't say what I want to say on camera. I think I am more down to earth and level-headed and my eyes are wide open to real issues. There is a problem with the older people that haven't had to fight this fight, live this struggle, have 90% of their wages go to essentials of life, rent or housing, utilities, groceries, and after that, what does anybody have left? They didn't grow up during that time. And so, their house might be paid off for, or they might have like a $400 to $600 mortgage. That's out of touch with reality. They likely had jobs that provided health insurance, and you didn't really need, a master's degree to get a great job 20, 30 years ago, and retirement and everything was rolled into that. Like, they don't really, I think, live through the problems that real Hoosiers and real Americans are facing.
And now we should say it is not just an age thing. I mean, certainly there is a gerontocracy problem in the political leadership in this country across the board. But it's not just an age thing. It is an old way of looking at things. You get young folks that are 30 that sort of still have that mindset because they were brought up in that sort of environment. But it's you alluded to it. They don't understand the struggle. Right.
Yes. Your struggle is my struggle. What they've done to the least of thee, they have done to me or somebody like me or somebody, that I know. So it's I'm the underdog in it for sure. I was the second of the Democratic Party to file for this position. So I'm not saying that they pushed her or handpicked my opponent in the primary by any means. She's a nice lady. But do I think that it's enough to inspire and invigorate the generations who have been sitting it out and letting politics be politics and business as usual and nothing's ever going to change? I'm not sure, but I know that I'm here for the long haul. This fight isn't over on May 5th. No matter what happens, this fight is not over just in November. This is for all generations to come. My daughter is only 8 years old. We have to make sure that we are really preparing for and thinking long term. What we do and what we change now, how is it going to affect us 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road? And so I'm here for that.
And you really got at the, I think, fundamental disagreement in a lot of these races we're looking at as we come up here on May 5th, the disagreements within the Democratic Party, the sort of fault lines here is that there's a group of folks, that old way of thinking, that like to say, oh, I can work across the aisle. I can be bipartisan. I don't want to rock the boat too much and go along to get along. As the Republicans move further and further and further right, oh, let's meet them halfway. Let's meet them halfway. Let's meet them halfway. And at some point, somebody just has to say, no, that's enough. We can't keep moving halfway.
Yeah. So, when you have such a poor voter turnout and you are stuck with people who have been, career politicians, or you're stuck in a sea of red is what I am, so I've had to deal with and engage with and try to find a way to create solutions with the Republican Party, because that's what's all around me, right? That's my entire county government almost. There's not a lot of Democrats up here in this little locale, even though our congressional district and whatnot, we do have some blue representatives and senators up here holding the line as well, but it's really not enough to have that check and balance, because with the super majority and the trifecta for how many years now, if they wanted to improve our lives, whether we're a Democrat, Republican, or independent, they would have done it by now. So we do need that fierceness and that toughness of, hey, that's just not reality. This is what's going on the ground. This is what's going on in the district, and we need to have more of that advocacy down at the Statehouse.
I'm old enough. I remember how the dangerous playground equipment works before they took all the seesaws out of the school playgrounds, and I know from that you can't achieve balance by keep meeting your opponent halfway, especially if your opponent is a 2-ton elephant, right? You've got to anchor yourself in your values over here on this side.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I've said it so many times, but like, why do we go down there year after year and change policy or create policy, and none of it is geared towards the people? We shouldn't be messing with laws at all unless it benefits the people. So I really, that's what I want to do and be as a representative, is somebody who is representing the needs and the desires, but also improving on the quality of life of everybody. I would love to, like I said, eradicate poverty. And there's a lot of struggles that will, have to be knocked down. But I do believe that our only path forward is rising up and doing the tough things, having the tough conversations, and getting people to rally for the same thing, because we should have better. It's 2026. We should all have better.
Absolutely. So if folks like that message they hear, take the last couple minutes here before I got to let you run. Tell folks where they can donate, where they can volunteer, where they can learn more about your campaign if they like what you heard.
All right. So I am on Facebook, Alicia for IN, State Representative. I am also on TikTok. My campaign email address is electaliciahd20 at protonmail.com. I have an Act Blue. I don't know if I know the exact link off the top, but I'm pretty sure you can just Google Act Blue, Alicia Firanek, and it will take you there. And I would actually like to put out a call for volunteers. I'm going to be door knocking and phone banking some more, and I would love to get even more people into that so they can feel proud about taking back their future.
Very good. Well, last thing, how do folks who aren't watching, who may be listening as a podcast, spell your name so they know how to look that up?
Sure, that's Alicia, Alicia, last name Firanek, F as in Frank, Iranek.
Very good. Alicia Firanek, thank you very much for joining us here on the podcast tonight. Stick around backstage. I will see you on the other side. Well, first I'm going to tell the folks goodbye, though.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you again so much for having me. Thank you for all the people listening and watching and following along.
Thanks, Alicia. All right. Once again, that was Alicia Firanek, candidate for House District 20 up there in LaPorte and Starke County in northwestern Indiana. Thanks to her for joining us, and thank you for listening or watching. I will be back this weekend with Who's Left This Week, Indiana's only unapologetically progressive Sunday morning politics show. We'll talk about the week's top stories from U.S. and international news, to what's going on here in our state and how it's all interconnected. That is 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 for you folks up there in the region. That's on YouTube, Facebook Live, and of course, our home at progressiveindiana.net. One last reminder to please consider supporting Who's Left and the wider Progressive Indiana network with a paid subscription if you're able. This is an independent media project, and it relies solely on the generosity of kind patrons like you to make this information available for free to everybody. Again, the website is progressiveindiana.net. We could also really use a follow on social media at Progressive Indiana Network on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the same handle, and over on Blue Sky and TikTok, we are at PIN Indiana. You can find me on most of your social media sites at Who's Left. You can direct message me there at any of those with feedback, tips, ideas, and concerns, or email me directly at scott@whosleft.us. Finally, please forward the show to a friend and have them pass it on too. Let's keep building this project and a truly democratic state, one conversation at a time. Until the next one, this has been the Who's Left podcast. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.